خانم ها و آقایان، سلام بر شما. سلام گرم و صمیمانه من رو از شبکه جهانی تلویزیون امید ایران بپذیرید. امیدوارم در هر کجا که هستید خوب و خوش و سلامت و پاینده و برقرار باشید. بار دیگر برنامه فرا رسید که این برنامه همونطور که خدمتتون عرض کردم یکی از برنامه‌ای که خود بنده بسیار بهش علاقه‌مند هستم، چرا که در هر کدوم از این برنامه‌ها، یعنی در هر هفته که ما این برنامه رو اجرا می‌کنیم، یه چیزایی به هر حال به اطلاعات من افزوده میشه و وقتی که خودم یه همچین احساسی دارم میدونم که بسیاری از بینندگان هم به همین صورت فکر میکنن. به همین دلیل این برنامه جز یکی از فیوریت برنامه‌های بنده هست، یکی از برنامه‌ای که بسیار بنده دوست دارم و هر هفته اطلاعاتی رو کسب میکنم که فکر میکنم در هر جای دنیا که باشیم و اطلاعاتی درباره اداره امور اداری اون کشور پیدا بکنیم، من فکر میکنم میتونه بهترین درس و تجربه باشه برای هر کسی. به هر حال خوشحالم که در برنامه هستم که به اتفاق دوست و برادر عزیزم آقای جهانگیر اردلان، یا بهتر بگم مهندس جهانگیر اردلان تهیه میشه و امروز هم چون هفته‌های گذشته مهمان دیگری داریم که در این راستا بسیار بسیار برای شما میتونه اطلاعات کافی رو برسونه. این شخصیت عزیز ما آقای باب بلومنفیلد. باب بلومنفیلد. من تو بلوش گیر کرده بودم، ببخشید. یکی از شخصیت‌های بسیار مهمی هستن که در دیستریکت 3 لس آنجلس به عنوان کانسلمن فعالیت دارن و این یکی از مهمترین شغل‌هایی است که برای اداره اون ناحیه به کسی داده میشه و خوشحالم که این شخصیت عزیز ما امروز اینجا حضور دارن، به اتفاق مهندس اردلان، که میتونیم سوالات بسیاری در این راستا داشته باشیم. Very welcome, Mr. Blumenfield, and
thank you so much, Mr. Blumenfield, for accepting our invitation. We are honored to have you with us today. And with your permission, I talk to Persian viewers. We have a lot of viewers throughout the world, as well as I told you. با عرض سلام به بینندگان خوب تلویزیون امید ایران، امیدوارم که همگی خوب و سلامت باشید. امروز ما یکی از کانسل ممبرهای، یعنی 15 دیستریکتی که ما داریم، 15 ممبری که در سیتی آف لس آنجلس داریم، یکی از ممبرها که قسمت سوم، یعنی قسمت وودلند هیلز، تارزانا و رسیدا، جناب آقای باب بلومنفیلد تشریف آوردن. We would like to welcome you, and if you can introduce yourself, give your position, give your background, your education, and how you got to this position.
Well, it's a lot to say, but first let me say I'm truly honored to be here, to be with both of you, and to be with your viewers. It's an honor to have this time with you to talk about the issues of Los Angeles and in my district. As you mentioned, my name is Bob Blumenfield. I'm the council member. I represent this area, an area which is quite a large area compared to, it's bigger than 99% of the cities in America, my one little district in Los Angeles, because LA is such a large city. So I represent the West San Fernando Valley, which consists of the communities of Woodland Hills, Tarzana, Reseda, Winnetka, and Canoga Park. I've been a council member for a little bit more than a year. For the 5 years prior to that, I was in the state legislature. I was in the state assembly. I represented almost the same area, a little bit larger of an area, and I was the chair of the state budget committee, and I worked on getting the state from economic insolvency to the place where we are now, which is in surplus. So I've been very focused on those issues as I was the budget chair, and I've been in the city for this last year, focusing on not only getting our financial house in order as a city, but also focusing on quality of life issues and trying to make our city the very best place that it can be. And it's an amazing community with amazing community members like you, John, and others who are here making us.
You're talking about the District 3.
Yes.
What is the differences between District 3 with the other districts?
So, of course, District 3 is the best district in the city.
Because you are there.
Because of the community, not because of me. But in District 3...
What is the population of this?
So the population is a little less than 300,000 people, 285,000 people. It's very diverse. A lot of Persian folks are in this community.
Can you guess about the minority of people,
Well,
as we see on the map?
Well, you see the map
Yes.
in front of you, and you have areas like Tarzana, which about 10% of the population in Tarzana is Persian. Woodland Hills has a very large Persian population, and throughout the area and throughout the city there are many.
Reseda?
Reseda as well. I mean,
Yes.
Los Angeles has the.
Can you guess
has
about
a-
the percentage of Iranian?
in the entire district?
Uh-huh.
It would probably be about 6%, 5-6%. But in certain areas, it's much larger. All of Los Angeles has about 500,000 Persian people of Persian descent, and so it's
800,000.
800,000 now.
What
Wow.
is the big problem in this district?
We have a lot of challenges in the district, and most of them come around quality of life issues. In Los Angeles, you ask, and I know because I ask people all the time what are the issues that are on their mind. The first issue, and not only do I know it just from anecdotes, but I've done surveys with folks, and the number one issue that's always on constituents' mind is public safety. People, first and foremost, want to feel safe in their homes and in their communities. The number two issue that people generally cite is traffic, because it's very frustrating to not be able to get from point A to point B, both in terms of just living your life and in terms of business and goods movement. But then we have all the other challenges that every other city has as well. People are very concerned about education. They're concerned about the quality of life issues, about health issues, and some of these issues, education and health are less city focused as they are county and state. But from a city perspective, our big issues are the quality of life stuff, getting your streets paved, getting the trees trimmed, getting the police there at the right time, the fire department there, and then making sure we build a good network of public parks, and then land use. I mean, from a city perspective, land use is one of the top things that we deal with, trying to create appropriate development in the appropriate places, manage the growth so that you keep the character of residential neighborhoods, but you create good growth where you want it to be. And it's very exciting. John and I were talking about this earlier, of some of the growth that is happening in the 3rd District.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We are really pleased to have you in District 3, especially in last 12 months. A lot of changes, a lot of changes happening in Woodland Hills, in Tarzana. That's why, if you may explain what is going on Topanga Canyon between Victory and Oxnard. It's a big development going on.
I'd love to tell you about
another question is
Yes.
2035. That's another amazing thing. We want you, if you may, one by one, you can explain to us what is happening, how it's going to affect the price in the area, which is a very big, and also the traffic. The traffic that you mentioned is not going to affect, obviously, with all these buildings we are having over there. And on DeSoto, we got a lot of apartment building going on. In the last 12 months, you got in position in this area, probably before they planned it, but they are doing, but a lot of recent development is going on.
Yeah.
We would like to know what is...
I'd love, and there's been a lot cooking for many years.
Yes.
And so, I stand on the shoulders of many people, and I don't want to take credit for things that I can't take credit for. But in these last year that I've been in the council, I've been able to sort of be a closer. There's been a lot of things that have been kicking around for years, and I've made it my mission to close these issues out and move forward.
Yes.
The biggest of which you mentioned is the Warner Center 2035 specific plan. That had been kicking around for a long time. The specific plan in a city like Los Angeles, and most cities, you manage the development through these plans where the community comes together and they try to decide where they want the development, what type of development, and how, and what will be the rules and regulations. And we've been operating in the West Valley under some very old plans for many years, built in the 70s when the idea of what the valley would look like was very different. It was focused on cars, where you'd have a building in the center and you'd have an island of parking.
Parkings, exactly.
And it was not meant to be a pedestrian-friendly city. It wasn't meant to be the type of modern city that people talk about now as the way of the future. When I talk about that, I'm talking about a pedestrian-friendly, clean, green city which is centered around work, play, and family, and trying to have cities where you don't have to travel all up and down the city to do all of those types of things. And so the Warner Center plan is...
there is a map on.
Oh, perfect. The Warner
Yes.
Center plan is divided up, as you can see, into 9 different sub-districts, where you have the Uptown, the North Village, the Downtown, the College, the Park, Commerce, and each of those districts has a specific rules and requirements about what can be built, what the density can be, and what can and can't be there.
If you may specify the boundary of that 6 place, where is it? Is it Topanga, between Topanga and
Victory.
Yeah. Well, if you look at,
Victory.
if you want to put the map back up,
Yes,
you
please.
can see that on one side you have Topanga. You see the
Yes.
it actually says Topanga on the side.
Yes.
The center one that says downtown is, we'll talk about that. That is the area where the Village property is going to be, which is the major new development. And then you have
which they are
Uptown.
doing it right now. Obviously, all these steel construction going on.
Yeah, major construction
Massive.
going on.
Massive,
They started.
yes.
Every day I'm passing and I see the
You see,
activity.
it's amazing.
What is going on?
And they're named for, the reasons why they're named. The Commerce section, you're going to see a lot more of the industrial type of buildings that are already there be built in that area.
And that's Owens Mount, am I right?
Yeah, Owens Mouth, I think, is
Yes.
the north-south street.
Yes.
The Commerce area, you're going to see a lot of business. The College is right next to Pierce. And so they all have their own unique character.
Exactly.
And so these areas, under the 2035 plan, are designed very differently.
What is
So-
the 23-5 plan? Because I'm sure most people don't know.
Yes.
Except Mr. Ardalan knows about
Oh, sure.
exactly because of his job.
Why they
Yeah.
select
But,
2035?
So the idea is to
What is that exactly?
it's a 20-year look into the future.
Uh-huh.
It's saying, we're starting in approximately 2015. We want to see what development is going to be like for the next 20 years. How do we want that to look? And it's the result of many, many community meetings where people, hash things out and says, well, I don't want to see this. I want to see this kind of thing. And a result of all of that is, this is the plan of where we want to see growth in the West Valley and how we want to see it. And what's great about that is investors come in and unlike in other areas where they don't have a plan and they have to get a variance for every little thing they want to do, in this area it's very clear what can be done, what can't be done. And it makes investments and development quicker,
Exactly.
much more certain. Things that will take years in other areas can take weeks.
amazing.
Because it's clearly delineated what can and can't be done. And so it's going to be very exciting. We're going to see a lot of very good development, a lot of high-end development.
And green.
And green. And the 2035 plan, and I'm proud of this because I insisted on this, is the cleanest and greenest plan that the city has ever seen.
Exactly.
I mean, we're talking about high LEED standards, standards of building and
Exactly.
construction,
Save energy.
saving energy. We're talking about instead of having these islands of parking, the buildings will be closer to the streets and there'll be bikeways and walkways within them. So instead of having these massive blocks the way we have now, it'll be broken up into much more of an urban environment with smaller streets in between for people to access, and will encourage that kind of access. And it's right along, it's also part of transit-oriented development, where we have the Orange Line coming into the West Valley that goes all the way to the Red Line subway, and that's also something I want to increase the capacity of. So that it's quite spectacular what's in store, and then we're talking about already. One of the things we're seeing built right now is what's called the Village property. The Village property is very exciting. It's a Westfield outdoor mall that sits in between the Promenade and the current Westfield Mall. Will be the site of over 100 new restaurants
Wow.
and businesses.
That's the.
That's the one.
That's
you're talking
an
about.
artist's rendition of what it's going to look like.
Can we see that picture, please?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is an artistic rendition of what the village will look like along Topanga Canyon.
How about any waterfalls over there?
There's a number of water features within this.
Okay.
Underground parking.
Can we see it, please? Would you show that, because I have some question. This is the
Topanga.
the Topanga, and
that's Topanga.
that's the Victory, right?
I think Victory is the northern
North,
end of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
What
It's
is this cross?
Oxnard.
Okay,
Oxnard, Irving.
all right.
That-
So what you gonna do with the population in the future? Because I can see, not too far, it's going to be add too many people to this
Well,
population.
all of these developments that we're talking about have to go through extensive what they call environmental impact reviews, and part of it is widening the streets that are adjacent to it to accommodate more traffic, and part of it is to try to live, work, and play in the same area. Is if you do it right, can actually reduce some of the traffic, so people don't have to travel downtown to go to a special movie theater. They don't have to travel, here and there, so that more of their lives can be closer in, and they don't have to use the roads as much. So the idea is to do it, to do those kinds of things, and to have it along a transit corridor, the Orange Line, so that people can use public transportation, because ultimately, public transit is the key for all of this.
How many percent is residential?
I don't know the exact percentage offhand. Of the village property, now of the overall 2035 plan, it's about even. It's about 30 million square feet of residential and 32 million of non-residential.
And how high would be the maximum height of that building? How many stories?
I don't know that exactly in terms of, because a lot of it has to do with the density and how they ultimately build it and the floor to area ratio. But these are not small buildings. I mean, that you're seeing.
That's what I'm saying. If you're looking at, then we are not looking into the FAR anymore. I mean, no variance, no FAR, and everything goes up a multi-story.
It's not unlimited. It's not unlimited by any means. But there's a new set of regulations of how that goes. And most of the village property that you're looking at is only a couple stories. It's one with the shops and restaurants on the bottom, and you have businesses on top. But then behind it,
it's parking structure.
There's parking structure, and they're ultimately going to have a hotel there as well.
Let's talk about the budget.
Yes.
How it support this district, by who, by how.
Well,
this budget.
These kind of developments are money makers for the city. They don't cost money to the city. They're putting in tremendous amount of resources for the fixing of the roads and the infrastructure we've had a lot of problems with, and these projects are infusing new money into. In fact, the village property alone is a $350 million investment, not by the city, a $350 million investment, by the Westfield Company. So we're expecting quite a lot more in property tax, a lot more in sales tax. All of that can go to help build our roads and bridges
to improve the city.
Improve the city, and not to mention, in addition to just the standard taxes that go into this, these projects also come with mitigations as well. On this last round with the subvention deal, we added an extra mitigation fund of another $3.5 million for infrastructure projects. There's cultural affairs funds. There's a number of funds that are going to go to really benefiting the quality of life of the adjacent communities that are coming out of these type of developments, which is a typical situation when you have, all about this, when you have a development, a lot of times they have to pay into funds that are going to help with the quality of life of the surrounding areas and help.
As far as the governmental agencies, have you thought about any other governmental agencies that are going to move into this area, like to be another downtown of Van Nuys?
Well, you mean like having a government building? Right,
government buildings.
Right now, in terms of city buildings, we have the Van Nuys,
yes,
which is quite a number of things. We have the West Valley Municipal Building, where my office is located, on Van Owen and Van Alden. If anybody out there has any issues with the city, come visit my office, Van Owen and Van Alden. We're always here to help advocate for the community. At the moment, I don't know of any other government buildings going in. There are a number of community centers. So as part of the Westfield agreement to get them to build there, they committed to 2 different community centers.
Neighborhood council?
Neighbor councils are engaged, but I mean, where the old Sizzler was, that is being converted into a community center. And then another community center on top of the parking structure that they're building. So there'll be 2 new community centers that will be available to nonprofit groups and community groups and government groups to utilize.
Day by day, we are facing with the traffic, and especially Ventura Boulevard.
Yeah.
What do you think about another years and years? What's going to happen?
There's no question. Traffic
because
is one of our.
There is no space for increase?
Well, at some point we may talk about widening the 101. That was talked about years ago, but it was rejected. Just like with the 405 freeway, and I was very involved with that for years. We finally got that carpool lane expanded on the 405 freeway, and it's all related, because even though we live in the West Valley here, the 405 freeway, is a choke point.
Exactly. Since they started construction, 405 freeway, 101 freeway has a lot of traffic. So it's very dependent on.
It's all related. Now that carpool lane is open, we're seeing a little bit better, but there's still that north-south corridor, and there's even talk. In fact, there's money in Measure R for public transit along the 405
or 101. At the center of 101, they can put the.
Yeah, the money that's in the current Measure R is for that 405 exchange, and they talk about putting a tunnel there, which would have potentially a train, and they talk about potentially a toll lane if that's done with a public-private partnership. But ultimately, it would be great to have public transit along the 101 as well. There's tremendous opportunity, and we know that public transit works. You look at the Orange Line. People thought that would take years. That was built just several years ago, that it would take years to hit capacity. Within a month, that Orange Line was at capacity. 30,000 riders a day is what we're seeing now. And I'm working to try to increase the capacity of that Orange Line by either moving it to rail, making it either light rail or heavy rail, and doing grade separation.
Like underground as well?
Underground as well. More likely what they would do is, on some of the north-south streets that it's causing traffic with, they would have the street go under the train. So that
Mr. Blumenfield, there is one problem with these cameras, especially on Canoga and Sherman Way. There is a limited time that you have, like maybe 20 seconds to make a right, and all of a sudden the camera, they take a picture and they send the ticket to the people. That's kind of, if they put it underground instead of spending so much money, we are trying to save water, am I right?
Sure.
They put so much plants all around these roads. They put the bus line, and then they didn't even. And then they are issuing obviously a lot of tickets. Is additional money for the city.
Actually, that money doesn't along the Orange Line. I wish that money was going to the city. That actually goes to the county, because the Orange Line is county.
But if they could have thought, they put it underground, and then the top of it they could put additional stores, shopping centers, non-profit organization for elderlies, housing, etc., etc. And they wasted that almost 50 or 60 or 100 feet for something that they could really thought about it, and they put it underground.
You're saying put the whole train underground?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always about money, and it's about community input. If you remember when the Orange Line was being conceived of years ago, and there was a lot of pushback from the community originally. People didn't even want to have a busway, and they were vehemently against a train. I think things have been turning around since that Orange Line has been so successful. People are more open to the idea of rail now. But if you remember, it took years to even get the Orange Line in there as a busway, because the adjacent community was very concerned about the possibility of a train. And back then, I don't think a tunnel would have passed the community muster by any means. I wasn't in office at that time, although I was working for a congressman at the time. But these are always a balance of money and of community interest and community willingness, because in a democracy like ours, the community has a very loud voice, and with good reason. And I'm all about engaging the community in issues. We talked about the park that I'm building, and
exactly, that's the one I was trying to ask you.
Yeah, and that reason why it was related is because it's about community input.
Exactly.
And if you want, I'll tell you about the story of that.
For the bike lane on LA River.
LA River.
That's another thing that you accomplished, and is already done at that part.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Tell us about it?
You want the park or the bike? I'll tell you.
Let's go for the bike first, which is very exciting.
Yeah, it's great. The LA River. People thought of the LA River, and some still think of it as just a drainage channel, because it was built originally to take the water, prevent LA from flooding, and get it to the ocean as fast as possible. Over the last 10, 20 years, there's been a bit of a renaissance in thinking about the LA River, thinking this doesn't just have to be a drainage ditch. This actually could be a major amenity for people. We could make this into a park. So there's been thoughts about trying to pull up some of the concrete, create more of a natural river, and make it so that the businesses that currently have their backs to the river and look at it as an industrial dumping site will turn around and focus on it and make it into a linear park.
Exactly.
I mean, people have linear parks. New York has a major, they call the High Line, and it's really in fashion these days because people realize what it could be. And what people are realizing now is that the LA River, which is 51 miles, starts up in my district, headwaters over at Canoga Park High School, the first goes all the way downtown, all the way to the ocean ultimately, turning that into linear parks. And so there have been efforts all along the way, and I've been very involved in this. And just recently, 3 weeks ago, we opened up, and it was a major effort, a bikeway from Mason to Owensmouth along the LA River, where people can now go 24/7. There's great street lighting, LED. There's exercise equipment. There's there's nice amenities along the way, and you can go with your family and you can bike or walk or jog along
From Owensmouth to Mason.
to Mason. Now, there's stretches. The ultimate vision is to connect all 51 miles in the city.
Just the starting right
But
now.
this is just a nice piece that we have in the valley, and it's going to connect. I'm going to try to get it connected up to the confluence of the Aliso Creek and the LA River, because we're building a park there. Something I was involved with in the state level, getting a couple of $1 million for, and we're now on the city level taking that money and building that park at the Aliso Creek LA River Junction, which is just south of Mason along the LA River, and that's going to be a beautiful park as well. Really
how big it would be, that
revitalizing.
park?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know the exact acreage. It's not huge, but
It's
it's
not huge, but it's-
there's a picture of us cutting the ribbon 3 weeks ago
Oh,
at the
right.
and that's a picture of the bikeway right
That's
there.
beautiful.
That's the bikeway. You can see the solar, the lighting, and you can see the LA River to the left of it, the water there, which is now just a concrete channel. Ultimately, try to get some more greenery in there.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
But
and that's lighted at night as well. They can go
it's lit up
24 hours.
It's
Beautiful
24/7, and it's
Yes.
people are using it right now as we speak.
Mr. Blumenfield, is there any chance to be create another road from Topanga Canyon to the, south, like to Freeway 10, extra freeway road?
You mean along Topanga Canyon?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard of anybody proposing that. You mean in terms of another north-south? Because it's all developed housing along that way, so it'd be very difficult to put in another road. Technology is always changing, and there's always possibilities of things. But
Is there any chance for another road to be added in instead, just
Mulholland
only
is a good
405?
chance, but if they
Is it-
convince the owners over there for beauty, if they can get to
Just a
Mulholland
Mulholland.
somehow, some way.
yeah, there's all sorts of issues on Mulholland in terms of another
Because in the
north-south.
future, 405 is not going to be enough
Yeah.
for this, this population of from north to the south if
Yeah.
they want to travel.
There's talk about, and there's money in Measure R in the 30-year plan, which is already passed. There's about $1 billion for a north-south public transit corridor. And there's a lot of talk about what that could look like, and that's along the 405,
Mm-hmm.
either along the 405 or people talk about a tunnel adjacent to the 405 that wouldn't interfere with any houses because it would be underground. And the idea, that would be very expensive, but what people are talking about, and it's now just very much conceptual, is having a train that goes through there, but also